Have you ever felt life was going really well and suddenly that love, that hope, and that comfort was suddenly taken away from you? And then the grief, pain, and confusion were so overwhelming that your body started speaking the words your heart could not communicate. Today I'm inviting a trauma-informed coach, writer of the book Harnessing Grief, Transform Your Pain into Purpose, and a woman whose life was forever changed when she lost her loved one. Her name is Thao too. In this episode, with Thao, we discuss in detail about going through grief and how to transform the pain of grief into purpose. We also discuss how important it is to listen to your intuition in spite of all the chaos that can happen in your life. Welcome, Thao, to the podcast Ayurvedic Healing and Beyond. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you for receiving me here because it feels like a cycle. This was a very important part of the beginning, a new beginning for me in India and in Sitaram.
Thao, let's just dive deep into the topic. What made you write the book? And also the topic, how did you come to the name of that book?
Yeah, so grief is this thing that can really unplug you from where you are. And when I lost my partner in 2015, it just felt like the whole ground under me was taken away from under. And it was such a deep fall, something that I couldn't imagine I would be in that space, deep down in the ravine. And at that stage, I really couldn't imagine how I could find my new path and move forward and refine, motivation to live. And as unimaginable that it was, it actually happened. And it was not like a linear journey. It was a mosaic of so many different learnings that I learned so much from the process. Mm-hmm. And I guess from that deep trauma of grief, of the loss of my partner in a tragic accident. So from that deep episode of being stuck and feeling unable to move and being able to move again, but through so many learnings, I just wanted to share my story and maybe give a glimpse of hope to those who are grappling with grief, or maybe just going through a shocking life trauma.
Tell me about the loss of your partner. What happened? And
yeah, so we were both French. We met in Spain and had a nice honeymoon part of our relationship in the first 4 or 5 years of our life. And then we decided to move to Asia. Mm-hmm. And we moved to Singapore. And that was a very tough transition because when we came to Singapore, he couldn't find a work permit. Mm-hmm. So we battled for a long time, and finally, miraculously, the work permit cleared in Singapore, and he reopened a chiropractic clinic. Mm-hmm. He's a chiropractor. And then we were just surfing the first 6 months of the outcome of a long battle. And so he was, as a character, he was very passionate with sliding and speed and motorcycle and skiing, in black slopes in the ski resorts. So he bought this electric skateboard. Mm-hmm. And it was in the first days of going out with it. So he went out without protection because too excited with the moment. And then just one night, he asked me to, we would usually go together. And he would ask me to go home first. And he would go for, he called it the last round. And then that night, he didn't come back. Mm-hmm. So, it was like, first I was trying to tranquilize myself and just think, oh, he probably must be enjoying the ride or something. And then at 1 a.m., which was almost 2 hours after I had left him on his own, his phone called my phone, and I picked up the phone, and it was this strange voice asking me, who does this phone belong to? And at the moment I was so upset. I was like, who are you? Like, this is the phone of my boyfriend. And like the lady very just called on the phone, just told me, this person had an accident, he's at the hospital, so just prepare your things and come to this hospital in Singapore. So I was still pretty tranquil at that time. Thought, oh, you know, he breaks things, and I thought, oh, maybe he just broke arm or something. So I really very organized. I go and prepare my backpack and everything, go to the hospital, and it took me 1 hour to find him because he had no paperwork or anything. And when I went into the room, it was really, really a shocking scene. I saw him like with a respiratory breather, and he wasn't moving. And after waiting for some, like, I couldn't understand. Like, at that moment, there was really you're not accepting reality. You're seeing something, but you're not processing it. You're not digesting it, and there's this, the monkey mind has gone, but there's the positive side, or the hope was on top of it, trying to think, oh, this is just, it's going to be all right. But when the doctor came and she asked me to, where are his parents, asked me who I was, and asked me to call his next of kin and ask them to come as soon as possible. And the word they use is he's brain dead.
Oh.
And we're going to try to do as much as possible to maintain him alive until his next of kin would come. So that was the beginning of a battle. So to make the story a little bit short, like, we tried to fight for his life for 4 days. And after 4 days, his parents flew in from France and make the decision to disconnect the respiratory help. And I guess he passed. He passed. So it was like a really unexpected event. And from that moment when I left him until those 4 days later, like, I think nobody could ever imagine something like that happening. And unfortunately, that's how I think sometimes death take away things that you don't expect to happen. People, they take
with a blink of eye. Somewhere we all keep a hope that, you know, death is there, but it's not going to happen to me.
Yes, exactly. I mean, you hear about people passing around you, but you never, that moment that it's happening so close to you, you never imagine it. So,
what was it like after that? How, I mean, when you talk about grief and processing, and I've seen people after, sometimes I've seen women when their father, if they are very close to their father, or if they are somebody's parent or brother or partner, and somebody is really, really close to them, and they had the identity and kept a hope, and suddenly when that breaks, I've seen people, they never recover from that. Even for more than a decade or even 2 decades, they went into a depression and they never recovered from that. Or they distract themselves with something, but you could see in their face, they did not go through that grief, and that led to many other problems with them. So what was it like? And when you say grief was one of your turning points, what is it like to go through that grief? What is grief for you?
Yeah, so I think that loss was even more difficult for me because I'm a believer in natural healing, and he was a chiropractor. In fact, he introduced me. He was like one of the people who make me sensitive to natural healing through his chiropractic care. And at the hospital, they were mentioning that he couldn't get a surgery, like he couldn't be healed by any of the, I would say, allopathic modalities, but we were fighting. So we called in, so many healers came. There was a surge of unconditional love, of, like everyone was bringing their support. It was a Saturday night, Sunday night, in the middle of the night. There was so much hope and so much energy put into trying to save him. And that loss was hard because I was just hoping for a little bit more time to try. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't given that opportunity. So it was almost like, like when you don't decide, I think the sharpness of the pain and the loss is even heavier. So what happened after that was, so first of all, I wanted to die. So I think that's first reaction when he's a partner, loved one. I think it's maybe different when he's a parent or a child, but when he's your direct spouse, you want to join him somehow. So I wanted to die. I had no willingness to leave or to do anything. Like I just lost any passion about my daily life. And then the next stage was to fall into some sort of a depression. So depression, I can describe it as is a latency that just makes you not willing to engage with anything. I didn't want to wake up. I didn't want to pull out of bed. I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to meet people. I didn't want people to tell me what I had to do. And unfortunately, that happens a lot with a good intention. So there was a very, very heavy weight on top of me that just prevent me from doing anything. It was like a numbness. Mm-hmm. So that was really the landscape I was going through for a few months after the trauma. And luckily, without me being conscious of it, I had, I'm really thankful for it. I had a great support system, even though I was in Singapore and it wasn't my home country, or I had no connection with Singapore. But I guess the surroundings was kind of maintaining the minimum for me to go through and to survive every day. It was a survival for me. And so, like maybe nourishing or sleeping the minimum or waking up and sitting down. So I had that support that luckily just helped me maintain, I guess, my daily needs. Especially my mom also came out and stayed with me for those immediate few months. And my mom, she's a great character in my life. She also has lost my father about the same age that I lost Matthew, in our 40s. And she came out and we didn't have to talk too much. We never talked too much. It wasn't like a verbal communication. And I think it was mainly her presence. Mm-hmm. Her presence, her care, her nourishment, just by, supplying the basics. And I think it was a different level of communication. So having someone close to you, I think maybe just be there for you without trying to mentally give you recommendations. I think that was very, very special for me. Yeah, so I think that was quite a stuck place to be in. And when I was there, I just couldn't imagine what could be next. And I wanted to die. I think that was the spirit.
Where was the turning point for you?
So the turning point, so there's been few elements that helped me move away from that ravine. So I was meeting people. There was a lot of generosity coming in. So one of the key character in the story is one of Matthew's patients. Her name is Virginie. She was one of his patients, French but living in Singapore, and she came and she gave me a lot of love and compassion and empathy. And one day, because she built that trust, because it was someone I didn't know, she advised me to see a psychologist. And first I was like totally rejecting the idea, like a bit of a bias. No, I'm not mentally sick. I don't need to see a psychologist. But she was very diplomatic because she presented the psychologist under like, he's very good at helping you find a new path when you are in crisis. So that description alone was really, really suddenly resonating with me. And I think that a turning point at that moment was to accept to be vulnerable. So I think I had been in that state for like 3-4 months, and I think I accepted that I couldn't move on alone in there, and I needed some help from outside, and that's vulnerability. So I said, okay, why not? Let's try and see where it leads. So I started coming to see this psychologist, and I remember the first session we had was really a kind of a breakthrough. We just went into the room, like you and me, like this, and he just looked me in the eyes and he asked me, how can I help you? And at that moment, it was like, I felt like I was like a dam where the water inside had been retained and
just
collected.
broke open.
Yeah, and then suddenly the bridge or whatever you call it,
The shutters open.
the shuttle opened up, and I just couldn't stop crying and tearing out, as if like I've been holding onto myself for all these months, thinking that, I don't know, a mix of culpability, resentment, and like all these emotions were stuck inside, and I wouldn't open up for help. And that day I just surrendered totally to that option, and I think I was lucky to meet the right person who opened that gate for me. So that was the beginning of a 1.5 years, almost 2 years of psychology. And to summarize a little bit, the work we've done with Dr. Nikon in Singapore was really this empathy, a safe place where I could outpour my negative thoughts. I had a lot of negative thoughts, and in that safe place, I would allow myself to just let them out without judging whether it's good or bad. And accepting the pain, accepting the reality, like not trying to escape reality. And then he was a bit special as well. He had a medium ability. So there were sessions where actually he helped me communicate, I would say, with Matthew's soul. And that was really useful for me because I think when you lose someone close and there's unfinished conversations or there are questions without answer, that creates a big stuck. You feel really hanging on to misunderstanding or non-understanding. And I think when we don't understand things, it's really hard to move on.
Was there any communication that you had through this medium that
Yes.
made you, that helped me to calm down?
Yes.
You said, what was that communication, if you're open to share that?
Yeah, so so maybe a little preliminary to that. I think it's a bit courageous for me to share this out loud, but I believed in it, and it's my story as raw as it is. So during the time Matthew was in a coma, because he was in a coma for 4 days, there's really one person that has played a very crucial role in me being able to move out of the grief. She's a shaman. So she, in a way, I think she's also has the ability to communicate with a different dimension of beings. And during the time she was in a coma, he was in a coma, she and a whole team of shamans from Southeast Asia also came into play and helped me have this dialogue with Matthew's soul. So I had gone through these episodes where he would describe that he's at the doorstep of moving on to the next world. And it's so beautiful on the other side, while if he stays, he wouldn't know whether he would be able to move, because his injury, basically what happened is when he fell down, it was a lack of oxygen. It blocked his neck, and the lack of oxygen for more than a few minutes created the
brain
strong injury in the brain. So he was not able to move
his body anymore.
And so he was afraid of coming back into his body and not being able to move, and hence not being able to work. And for him, chiropractic was a passion. And without that ability, he wouldn't be able to be happy. So there was this ongoing conversation that I've had with him about, is if he comes back to this world, he doesn't pass that doorstep of the other world, whether he'll be able to leave. And during the 4 days of the coma, basically, me together with all the healers, we kind of have this
communication,
convincing him to consider coming back. So ultimately, when I was at the psychologist and had the chance to discuss, or dialogue again with this other dimension of himself, he mentioned that he knew if he had come back, he wouldn't be able to move. So it was better for him to move on. And at that moment, that shaman, one advice that she gave me after he passed was to honor his decision. And for me, basically, the biggest proof of love I could give him was to respect what was the best for him, not what was the best for me. Because I wanted to bring him back and try to save him. Consciously, maybe I didn't know at that time whether it was the best or not, but having that perspective that just withdraw yourself from what you want and consider that for the person who is passing, sometimes they are suffering something that we cannot understand because we don't have that surgery or that fall or that trauma, and that whatever their path is the best for them, and show enough love to let them go. So I think that was that was a critical. So few modalities that came in, so that medium
it helped you to move on.
Yeah, understand, accept, and then be able to move on. I've done other things as well. There's been, as I mentioned, it was like a mosaic of different actions. Gratitude journaling. So I had problems sleeping at night because...
After this incident?
Yes. So in the grief, like within the grief. So basically because I was passionate about natural healing, I didn't want to take sleeping pills, and I didn't want to have to fall under alcohol or, taking any kind of drugs to help me sleep. So I was recommended to do gratitude journaling. So I would spend the last 5 minutes of the day basically recapitulating the day and finding small things I could hang on and be grateful for. And those things didn't have to be big. It could be, just a smile or the attention of a waiter in a restaurant or some friends calling. But I think that small routine that only took 5 minutes in a day helped me shift me out of the negative thoughts and the daunting memories into something positive. And, it kind of helped me bring me into a better state to, for example, fall asleep and be able to rest.
But do you think, when you tell somebody who's going through grief, practice gratitude, sometimes I've seen it can backfire. They might go into even more grief. You are not understanding what I'm going through. How can I practice gratitude right now?
Yes. So I think for me, it came together with a
lot of other supports.
Yeah. So I was seeing the psychologist. I was also, I went back to the Ayurveda resort. I went, so the gratitude journaling was enabled after the Ayurveda stay, because Matthew himself was the person who introduced me to Ayurveda, because he's a chiropractor and he was investigating all these
alternative systems,
healing systems, and he wanted to experience himself a panchakarma. So as soon as we met, that was in 2008, 2009, we started going for our first panchakarma, and the result for us we were like stress people, like
a lot of work,
working a lot, burnout, and coming out of shape, a bit overweight, and things like that. The results were so astonishing that we ended up going every year. So we doing our
and that's how we met.
Yes. So we went every year for panchakarma. So after his loss, after 6 months, I actually decided to go back. I felt it was a safe place. Again, I think someone in grief is looking for safety. Otherwise, we cannot open up and we cannot really pour out.
Let's say that again. Someone in grief is looking for safety.
Safety. It needs safe places, safe people, safe environment to.
That's very important. Yeah.
To move on. If we don't feel safe, we don't open up.
No, I remember you were talking about your mother who just came, and there was no verbal communication, but somewhere I felt safe there.
Yes.
So if I were to look back, going through that grief, being with your mother was like a sense of grief. So let's say somebody is going through a loss and they're going through grief. How would you train? Okay, train is a very strong word. How would you prepare the surrounding people who are dealing with a person going through grief to give that safe space?
First learnings I get is what I experienced when I was in touch with people. People come with very good intention, but they always have the tendency
to push,
to tell you to eat. I remember a lot of people would tell me, I lost my spouse, and a lot of people were telling me how they lost their father or their mother. And I was inside myself thinking, has nothing to do
with what I'm going through.
Yeah, because when you lose your spouse, you're living with your spouse 24 hours a day. I mean, I respect losing a mother and father, and I certainly know that it's also big, but it's not the same kind of grief. Misunderstanding or not showing the empathy at the right place that's not safe. I'm not feeling safe when I heard those stories of, a person. But I understand that it was their best they could do, because it's very difficult to be with someone in grief. For normal people to be with someone in grief, I think it takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of courage.
To give them the space of safety, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So first of all is to have, to not push too much and be able to be there, listen, and if you can, be able to see what that person needs and not push what you think is the best for them.
That's a very difficult part.
Yes. And I felt it. I felt in my surroundings, a lot of people were uncomfortable, but I had too little energy to, I couldn't advise them. I was already struggling enough with myself.
That's why some people shut down during grief, because that's the best way to protect themselves and finding their own safety space.
Yes.
And what happened next?
So I continued, besides the psychologies, besides the Ayurveda. So every place is like a stepping stone. You go somewhere, you do something, and then someone in that safe space, something else happened, and it introduced the next piece of the mosaic that helps you, I think, first evacuate a little bit everything that is stuck. So, for example, when I went back to the Ayurveda center, my yoga teacher, Lalita, she was also studying other natural healing modalities, so introduced me to EFT, the emotional freedom technique. And at first, it was very difficult for me to do it alone. So, for people who don't know what it is, it's like an acupressure system. So you just tap a certain part of your body, and then you state affirmations. Even though when you're in grief, you're not able to really align with the affirmations that you're doing, but it's almost like unconscious. It's working on an unconscious level to make you go towards that affirmation. So an example of affirmations that she helped me formulate, because I was unable to see what I needed, was even though I feel lost and sad, I'm fully approve and love myself. So that was the introduction of the notion of I'm okay, I didn't do anything wrong, and an expression of self-love and self-care and self-acceptation. I think that was also a seed that was planted during the grief process, where everything was stuck and blocked. One of the unblocking points is to start instilling that feeling of I love myself and accept myself as things are.
Can we say grief is also you feel so unsafe with yourself?
Yes. I mean, I think for me, my sense of more than feeling unsafe, I just felt worthless. My life was not worth living without Matthew. I kind of intertwine a dependency, and I think that happens a lot with couples that spend many years together. You get used to the other person, you do a lot of things together, a lot of things are intertwined, and when suddenly that other piece is lost, then you feel lost. So lost, worthless. So I think that together will build the sense of insecurity and like, I have no space, no place in this world now. What's the sense of it?
So that's what this affirmations is like, a pacemaker.
Yes. It was a unconscious process, for example.
How long did it take for you to slowly transition out of the grief?
It took 2.5 years.
So sometimes that's normal.
Yes, I think it's considered a normal period.
Sometimes some people can even take decades. But I think if you do the right things, you can come out of it. But we can't ignore the process. But sometimes people take decades because they are also running away but dealing with it. Yeah. Somewhere they are not even facing that grief properly, I think.
I think one of the learnings I realized is it was not about erasing or taking away the grief from myself. It was about embracing it and learning from it to build a new definition of myself and a new definition of life. So, for example, in the grief, I felt I was the worth of my existence was totally questioned, feeling lost. So instead of just, so one option is to be lost in those thoughts. And then the other option is to embrace being lost and, having those feelings of not worthiness, and stay with it sit with it, let it be, not judge it. And then comes a time where suddenly grief teaches you that, nothing is permanent. There was one moment where I realized, after the episode of me wanting to die, I think I was on this mode of that transition mode of just accepting, loving myself. So I didn't want to die anymore. And then I switched to the other side. I say, oh, what if I die tomorrow? What would I do today? Mm-hmm. So that was also a very powerful breakthrough for changing my attitude towards my actions in a day, thinking that nothing is permanent and everything can just disappear tomorrow. So if tomorrow is my last day, how do I want to spend the last, some of my energy today? And that was really powerful, because then I stopped messing up with things that had no value, and that was waking up some levels of energy so that I could, make better decisions and start to take actions instead of just being numb and latent and stuck in that place.
So when you say, I started looking at life like tomorrow's the last day, and then that gave you a new perspective. So tell me, what actually shifted?
So, so in that thought of, tomorrow could be my last day, and how do I want to spend today? I just realized, first of all, what is the meaning? What can be meaningful for doing today? So there was this quest. There was a beginning of a quest for a more meaningful day, a more meaningful, maybe short-term goal, and then over time, a more meaningful life. So for example, I had a job. In fact, I was an executive leader in a corporate world, and I had a lot of responsibilities, which was exciting for me before. But at that moment, I had no motivation to go to work. I was not interested I had a wonderful team at that time, very efficient around the world. I was working at a global level, so it was very fun for me before to have a team from different culture. I used to enjoy all these multicultural environment, resolving problems. But my passion for all of that just totally disappeared. And what used to be the most meaningful thing in the past became meaningless in the next moment. And there was important realization is, I just remember when Matthew was in a hospital those 4 days, and all these healers who came in and helped with, there was Junjitsu practitioners, acupuncture practitioners, people specialized in aromatherapy, music therapy, chiropractors. Of course, he had a lot of support from chiropractor. That was catching my attention, and I thought, wow, all these people who were willing to support and reach out on a Saturday night, Sunday, over the weekend from across the globe and help. And some of them came to the hospital to give their service and didn't want to be paid. I thought, wow, that was really attractive to me, and doing something that has an impact that is so tangible. Because in my old job, I was working in a telecom industry. I was doing consulting projects, strategy work, consulting work to help improve performance for these big telecommunication companies, but I couldn't see tangibly the result. while in this new job that I was observing just retroactively. Healing is, you try to do something for someone and you see the results immediately. So, these healers, of course, he didn't survive, but whatever they did, I think helped in that situation. There were some improvements and things that over the 4 days. So that was a moment of truth where I think I found a new attraction and a new dimension of the meaning and the dimension of helping others. Mm-hmm. So that was a revelation for me, and that was another seed that was planted suddenly in me, and I thought, wow, maybe that's where I need to go to works. So that was the beginning of the new path.
So what do you do right now? What is your purpose from that?
So right now, I'm a healing and transformation coach. Mm-hmm. So I help people. Usually they come to me with maybe some stress or low energy, or sometimes they come to me with pain, because I also have a clinic in Spain where I see people physically, and I help them because I also do traditional Chinese medicine through acupuncture. But I think in my work, the big component of my work is the coaching. So I help them shift the mindset mm-hmm. from maybe a negative pattern that they come with, maybe to look at things from a different perspective, a bit like what I went through, to unblock what is stuck in them and maybe open doors so that they can start progressing towards a new path. And I don't know what is that new path for each one of them. It's their job to find it, but my job is to open the gate and unblock the flow so that they can find it themselves. So I think I embrace that breakthrough moment of the healers, and it's a kind of a healing in a multiple mm-hmm. dimension.
So if I were to understand the essence of, from that pain to your purpose. So this accident happened, you felt loss of identity, grief. And from that depth of that deep pain, and where everything came to a standstill, you came out of it, and now you found your purpose. So this, if I have to go through this timeline, sometimes people never are able to unblock. Sometimes people get stuck there. Like when you ask some people who found their purpose, what was the thing that made you go through this? It's actually something quite difficult for a common man to experience. And then they attribute some of the most painful incident was the cause that made them find one of their biggest purpose. Like they say, if you want to see the rainbow, you need to embrace the storm. Mm-hmm. So, but embracing that storm is the form of unblocking that you're saying. You need to go out that. So, and also when you're talking about grief, you feel so unsafe with yourself, and then repeating those affirmations, no matter what the chaos outside, I love myself and I'm safe with myself. That internal dialogue, it plays an important role. Now, as a supporting system to somebody going through that blockedness or feeling stuck or going through that grief, should we just wait for that person to go through that and find it on themselves? Or if we also impose it, you mentioned somebody is going through grief. If you try to impose it, it might backfire, and you feel that we are not able to listen that. So we need to walk that thin line of not being able to push at the same time. You need to give them that ability. I can help you to come out. Like the psychologist who said, or the friend who referred you to that psychologist said, maybe when you're going through that stuckness, it will help you to find a new path. Mm-hmm. So if you were to make it easy to understand when somebody is going through a feeling of being stuck or grief, how to help them move out, transition out quickly, what would be the steps?
I think it's like someone who likes to eat donut, you cannot tell them stop eating donut. So I think the subtlety to be found there is to allow the person to accept the pain and go through that emotional storm. I mean, the emotion needs to be expressed. They need to be there with the person so that they can accept it for some time. But in parallel to that, I think the reason why I mentioned the donut is to shift their focus on relaxing, align themselves, connect with themselves, and connect with the higher dimensions of ourselves and of life. So, for example, things like meditation, mantra singing, grounding, walking barefoot. So there's some techniques that, in fact, I describe in my book that help me, without me being conscious of it, it helped me create some space within myself so that I'm able to find the clarity to see a bit clearer what is the new purpose or the new fulfillment in the new path. So, so the answer to the question is there's a balance to be strike between listening and presence, and so that's why the psychologist was so important. I think it was really that axis of allowing me to express my negative thoughts, to express my emotions, and not keep them inside. And then at the same time, you need to have another axis of work of shifting the attention into almost a spiritual experience, connecting with yourself, meditating, and finding the connection with your true self, because there's a true self within us that is higher or more than that grief. That grief was just an event in our life, and we are a lot more than that.
Mm-hmm. Anything else that you wrote in your book that you want to share when it comes to the finding that purpose when you're going through that pain?
So I think as a consultant for over 20 years of my life, and
you mean in your corporate world?
Yeah, in the corporate world, and now being a coach, I would like to highlight that a lot of time people search. They have questions in mind, and they are searching for answers to those questions. Or, what should I do next? Or I'm not happy with my job. What other job should I do? And I think the shifting or the pivotal point sometimes is not to find the answers to one question that you're stuck with. Is just to continuously ask yourself the right questions, smaller questions, that will eventually make you reflect and find small pieces of answers that will then give you the answer to your bigger question. Mm-hmm. I don't know whether it makes sense. It's like asking you, instead of trying to answer one question, just ask yourself smaller questions, like more building blocks of not an existential question, but what does my body needs today? What have I learned from the bad experience? So these are what I call the smaller question, instead of asking myself, what is the next job I should have? Mm. So asking the right questions to yourself is a very powerful process, and sometimes we are not able to do it ourselves. So the other key message is vulnerability has been key in my healing process from grief, because if you just try to do it yourself or within your only known circle of safety and confidence, sometimes you cannot see the light on the other side of the tunnel. But if you become vulnerable and be open to things and just continue one small step at a time, because when we come out from grief, we cannot jump immediately into the new path. Everything is just so microscopic steps, but what is important is to get to a next step and
move forward. How do you define vulnerability in your words?
So vulnerability is the courage to go out and with honesty express how you feel, what you think, and then seek help from outside. And when you seek the help, I don't have to have a study of the profile of the person who is going to help me. Be a bit open with, if someone wants to help you, allow them to be there, and be open of the methods of how someone can address.
I think some people are not able to come out of grief or depression. Somewhere they realize there's no one to help, and if I ask question, I'm showing to the world that I'm weak.
Yes.
And I don't want that somewhere. So I think vulnerability can be a great antidote for grief.
Yes.
Would you agree to that? Or?
Yes. So I think that's what I say. It's an act of courage, because you need to reveal something that shows that I'm weak. Yeah. So when I say express honestly my emotions, I mean, for example, I was angry at Matthew.
Why did he do that?
He left me. But, for me to say that is an act of vulnerability. I'm not saying that just for the act of feeling that anger. It's just because I learned from it. And the big learning was, okay, I was angry at him, but at the end, I loved him more because I needed to accept that it was better for him to go. Mm-hmm. And that was bigger than, my anger for leaving me alone. That was almost a selfish expression for myself, but for him, it was a different story.
I think the statement that you made, the biggest act of love, was to honor his decision rather than being selfish. So, how do you see transformation? I mean, when you say I'm a coach, there are various definitions for transformation. Many people think I have this aha moment and everything turned around. Some people, they have this slow steps, and then suddenly when they look back and see, oh my God, I didn't realize how much I've changed, to what level I've come. So what is transformation for you?
Yeah, so it's rather the second option that you mentioned. I think transformation is a journey. And when you take that journey, you don't need to have a clear definition of what is that other side. Mm-hmm. Rather than a goal or a destination, what is more important is to have, to be aligned with what is your passions, your values, what brings you fulfillment, and is to take all the different small steps, which I would call the process, and then having the trust that every short step will bring you the next step. Because at that moment when I started my transformation and just had that moment of reflection that the healers were so generous and I could see such a tangible result, and it was so fulfilling to be able to help someone else. I had no idea what I would be doing today, but I just took the next step and went to study Ayurveda. Mm-hmm. So who would imagine that from studying Ayurveda today I have an acupuncture clinic? So, you have that trust that, when you're aligned with at the moment, if you're aligned with something that you're really passionate about, and because that passion will give you all the energy to put into all the actions that you need to take to make it happen. And then once you fulfill that, then someone will bring the next step along.
And then and you need to be persistent with that, and then that aha moment could come.
Yes. So I think you need a bit of discipline, a bit of resilience. Yeah, I mean, you cannot also just sit with the legs crossed and wait for things to happen. That's not my message. I mean, work. The journey of 1,000 miles start with the first step.
Tell me about your clinic. Where's the clinic situated that you run? And
so I live in Spain now in a town called Denia. It's between Alicante and Valencia. I decided to create a life for myself surrounded by health and well-being. So that's why I'm living by the sea right now. And Denia is a smaller city, so it doesn't have all the stress of a
big city.
So I just I run a clinic and I do traditional medicine, Chinese medicine, as more like a method, but I also use Ayurveda for the daily habits and maybe the nutrition aspect. And then I also do coaching online. So a lot of time people come and see me in Denia. So we start the physical therapy, but they are not from Denia, so they go back and they leave, other places, and then we start to work online together. And when we work online, I combined elements of coaching. So coaching for me really means helping them with all the pieces of wisdom that I have come across through my journey of grief and recovery, to help them shift their focus, their perspective, their energy. And I also teach through movement therapy. So a bit combining, the best of all the things that I've learned through things like yoga, qigong, tai chi, breathing techniques. So I just combine a subset of all of this depending on each person's needs.
All this because of that grief that guided you to find this.
Yes. If someone asked me, 10 years ago, would you imagine that you would leave the consultancy and Ericsson and do what I do now? It was impossible to think that 10 years ago. And if you ask me now, would you ever go back to the corporate world and do what you used to do? And the answer would be, it's unthinkable either. So I think it's not about forgetting the past and thinking that I was in the wrong track. There was a time for it. And each phase of our life, I think maybe our calling or our purpose evolve. And I hope that, for other people, so when I help actually people transform within the sessions that we have, I just hope that people can access this space of higher potential without having to go through the trauma like I did. Because I think I didn't choose, maybe this
that
path.
Was your,
so what I would wish for people that I touch is they can go through the same, but without such a big trauma in between. They can consciously decide to transform and move towards something bigger than what they used to do or who they used to be.
It's a very noble vision. But sometimes people learn it the hard way. So that's another side.
That's a good way to describe it. I learned it the hard way.
Thank you so much, Thao, for your time and this wonderful conversation. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you for you to have me here today. And again, I want to mention it again. It feels really like a cycle because when I took off and quit my job, and the first step of that new path was actually an opportunity that you gave me at Sitaram, and I'm so grateful. It's been 7 years now since that journey, and maybe it's a Saturn cycle, I don't know what it is, but 7 years later to be back here and on this podcast with you, I think sounds like a perfect moment to share my story.
Very wonderful. Looking forward to hearing more stories, and I will definitely put the links for your book also so that people can connect with you through that. Thank you so much.